wanted to talk about some impact freshmen. Chris Hummer did a really good job. He put, I think, 100 true freshmen to watch, impact freshmen to keep an eye on. Now, I'm not going to go down the full list. That's on 247sports.com if you want to look at it. But as we enter Preview Magazine season, I think the biggest blind spot in Preview Magazine culture is just this, which we luckily specialize in here, and that is having intimate knowledge and familiarity with true freshmen. It used to be it didn't matter. It used to be freshmen couldn't play back in the day. But even semi-recently, it didn't matter because the true freshmen that were truly going to be impact players were so few and far between, like a Jadeveon Clowney, for example. You just figured, oh, I'll know their names. That's not the way it is anymore, guys. It's just changed. The game has changed. And I think what's happened is better development across the spectrum of high school football combined with systems being built in a more simplified manner for younger kids to be able to grasp. They've kind of meshed into this formula, into this environment now where your average freshman is more likely to get on the field early. And because of that, I mean, if you're going to sit around and want to know this game, especially if you're going to want to bet on it, you better know these true freshmen's names. This is not just for the parents of the players. I can assure you of that. Let's start at Ohio State. I'm going to go down the list here. I got about 6 or 7 names that I'm going to rattle off here that I think you need to know, and we'll probably do this segment several times. There are 2 of them at Ohio State, Jordan Hancock and Ja'Kalen Johnson. These are both corners. Again, if you follow recruiting, you're going to know pretty much all these names. The ratings are important here, and I'll get back to the ratings in a second. Ohio State secondary was bad last year, inexcusably bad. It was inexcusably bad for a team with fractions of their tradition and resource. But it was really reprehensible to see Ohio State ripped up and down the field like they were. They know the stat. You may not. 122nd in total pass yardage allowed. Whew. So let's fix that this year. Now you look at the 2 projected starters for them, Sevyn Banks and Cameron Brown. You didn't see them in the spring because they were out dealing with injury. But these 2 cats that I'm talking about right now, you can see them. You can see their full profile on the screen that Jesse's showing you right now. What's important about these 2 guys, I was talking to Dave Biddle before we came on air from bucknuts.com. I asked him, do you think those guys are immediate contributors? Are they depth providers? Where do you feel like they're going to slide into the rotation? He said, I'd be surprised if they're week 1 starters, but they'll certainly be in the mix. And what's important here is these are 2 kids at a position that are the highest rated that Ohio State has recruited at that position, corner, since 2017. Maybe you've heard of these names, Jeff Okuda and Shaun Wade. Don't let what you saw from Shaun Wade last year fool you. You got him in the right position. He's a baller. I don't have to brag about Jeff Okuda. But you've had Arnett come through there. You had Okuda. You had Wade. And then you look around, and you can be hopeful for Sevyn Banks and Cam. I mean, you can be hopeful for guys. I'm not saying I'm not. What I'm saying is these are guys, Hancock and Johnson are guys that you look at in week 1, and they're in the 2 deep maybe, or maybe in the 3 deep. But then you look again in week 8, and you say, oh, I didn't see them early because they weren't early enrollees, but man, like we're halfway through the season now. I think these guys are going to be like prime-time contributors down the stretch the rest of the way for us. Those are very important players. I mean, those are legitimate corners that could see the field a lot as true freshmen. Go up to Michigan right quick. Donovan Edwards. Now, I was sitting either at this desk or on one of our side sets on National Signing Day, and this was a fight. I mean, Donovan Edwards was one of the top running backs in the country. They being Michigan, they were fighting. At one point, Bama, Ohio State was in the mix. Notre Dame, I remember, was strongly in the mix. And Michigan kept him in state. I want to say in state. Edwards was somewhere up there, let me say that. So they got him. I felt like they were the leader, and they got him. There is a huge fight here going into signing day, and it's good, and everyone around Michigan is talking about, okay, we got a game changer at running back. Well, okay, and I agree with that. But do you truly believe in the definition game changer? And if you do you believe in it being attached to Donovan Edwards? Because I do. So that's why if I were to look at Michigan's running back depth right now, I see Hassan Haskins, I see Blake Corum. And if you didn't know any better, you'd say, okay, so Edwards comes in, he'll probably get some mop-up duty as a true freshman, and we'll see him as a sophomore. No, not if you believe in the definition of game changer. If you believe in that, all due respect to Haskins and Corum, Donovan Edwards has got a talent profile they don't have. The biggest question that comes into play, as is the case with every true freshman running back, is Do you have a ball carrier or do you have a complete running back? Because ball carriers lose games. Because ball carriers cannot do the full complement of things that you need a running back to do. But if you got a complete running back, doesn't matter how old they are. And in this case, all things equal, Edwards is more likely to be on the field. Because when you boil it down, he's the most talented running back they have the second he steps on campus. And so keep an eye on him, because once he earns that trust, he's not going to be waiting behind, folks. This is not a coaching staff that has 2 or 3 years equity built up. They got to win. They got to win now. Let's go to Oklahoma. Linebacker position. Going to be talking about defense a whole lot with Oklahoma this year. Great opportunity for a young man by the name of Clayton Smith. He's a linebacker, as I just told you, coming into Oklahoma. The 24/7 Sports composite had this kid nearly in 5-star territory. I mean, he was in the 37, 38 range, so he was right there. But he's got a great opportunity because Oklahoma's defense, under Alex Grinch, they got a ton of returning talent. I mean, they got a guy in Nick Benito, for instance, at linebacker that could end up being an All-American and put up untold amounts of sacks this year. And you get to slide into that rotation. You're not some guy, Clayton Smith's not some guy that comes in and everyone's saying, all right, you got to be the savior here. Terrible defensively, you're our only hope. Nope, we got about 14 or 15 of them over there, and he can just slide in. But here's what he brings. He brings a raw, pure pass rush ability, the likes of which, even as good as I like this defense, very few other cats on that defense have. So he's a little bit raw, and the benefit is they're not relying on him. Okay, they don't need him. It's not do or die here. But the luxury is I think they're still going to get a lot from him. So again, kind of like we talked about with these corners at Ohio State, what you see in week 1 from Clayton Smith may be a little different than what you see in week 8 from Clayton Smith. Running back is also a big focus at Clemson right now. Travis Etienne feels like he's been there since the Bush administration. And so he's gone now. Travis Etienne out, and Clemson you look at as being one of the programs, one of the very few programs that's still capable of duplicating production, even though they lose, obviously a long-established talent at the position. Will Shipley is a running back. It's a 5-star running back, and he's coming in, and I want you to listen to these athletic comparables. So the athletic profile, as we call it, 40-yard dash time with Travis Etienne was a 4.45, and Shipley's a 4.45 guy. The vertical, 33.5 for Etienne, 36 for Shipley. Shipley's a really good east-west guy. His athleticism surprised even the Clemson staff. Dabo Swinney was public about it. He said he was better than we thought he'd be. And this is talking about a true freshman in his first spring practice. Physically, also Dabo said, way ahead of where we thought he'd be. I mean, this is a guy that they can afford, again, once he earns that trust, they can afford to put him on the field this year, and he's going to be a guy that you look at and say, boy, I thought they were going to drop off at that position. And it turns out they really didn't. And so Will Shipley's a name. And also I wanted to go a couple of wide receivers here really quick. James Blackstrain is a name that I don't know a lot of you were following on the recruiting trail. They certainly were in Atlanta. He was just inside our top 300 in the composite. He went to Georgia Tech. Why is this name important? Well, Georgia Tech's returning receiver with the best measurables and really the best statistics is Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's not a receiver. He's a running back. So they are really barren in terms of proven productivity in that receiver room. For his money, James Blackstrain, by the way, is the 3rd highest rated wide receiver they've ever brought in to this program. So he's not an early enrollee, but they feel around that program, number 1, due to the opportunity that's bountiful there, and number 2, due to his more technically polished profile. I think he'll be on the field pretty early for them, and you'll see him as an early option in that offense. And lastly, but certainly not least, in fact, a kid we've talked about a lot, Agiye Hall at Alabama. I've been doing drills on his name, by the way, because we really ingrained in our mind a bad habit. And so you got to go Agiye Hall, Agiye Hall, Agiye Hall. I do it when I'm driving around town sometimes, just doing name drills. So we got that one, Mr. Hall. But what he's going to have is an integral role on this Alabama offense as a true freshman. Here's what the benefit you get with Hall is. You don't give up speed. You don't give up athleticism. You certainly don't give up hands. We're seeing highlights from the spring game. He had 4 catches for 72 yards in the spring game. It felt like more than that, to be honest with you, because all of them were contested, and he didn't let you down in any one of them. And he wasn't even catching balls from the number 1 quarterback there either. But what you get from him is all the skill you've been used to watching all those other guys have, but in a 6'3", 200-pound body. instead of the usual 5'11", right at 6 foot kind of receiver that Alabama's had there. Oh, they certainly haven't been hurting for anything at the wide receiver position, but what you get from him is you get all the benefits and the athleticism, probably going to be a devastating blocker for them. Nick Saban didn't even try and hide it. They were on the field with him during the spring game asking, who's this guy? He said, well, he's a guy you're going to see a lot this year. He's going to play a lot for us. So I think he's going to pop from day one. Those are just a few of the several names to keep an eye on as true freshmen. You go to 247sports.com. Chris Hummer still got that piece up. There are a lot of names to familiarize yourself with.